Space does not change abruptly. It never does. At first, only the smallest reference points begin to slip, the kind no one consciously tracks. The evenness of darkness, the familiar spacing between distant stars, the quiet certainty that emptiness behaves the same in every direction. On the helix's displays, everything appears normal. The data aligns, the trajectory holds. No warnings, no alarms. And yet, when you look for too long, something feels delayed, as if space itself hesitates before answering your gaze. A distant star sends its light a fraction longer than expected. Not enough to be an error, just longer. Ray notices it first, but says nothing. Some things collapse the moment you name them. As long as they remain unspoken, they exist in a fragile balance. Once said aloud, they become either a problem or a mistake. The helix continues forward. The systems continue counting. Only the feeling remains, thin, uneasy, like a thought left unfinished. Something no longer settles into a single present, but for now, it still pretends to. Then the fog appears. Not a physical fog, not something light can cut through or instruments can isolate. It forms between things, between moments, between glances, between what you have already seen and what you have not yet understood. The space around the helix grows layered, not deeper, but more complex, as if darkness itself exists in several overlapping versions. Stars no longer look like fixed points. They leave faint traces behind them, not motion, not blur, but the suggestion that light here arrives by more than one path. Leah is the first to notice that the shadows inside the ship no longer align perfectly, only for fractions of a second, only enough to feel wrong, as if the light comes from more sources than it should, or from moments that are no longer the same. Cram checks the readings twice, then a third time. The numbers agree. No one says the word danger. It is still too early, but it becomes clear that the knot, the structure that held time in a single shape, has begun to behave differently, not breaking, not disappearing, failing. And there is something disturbingly calm about it, like a mechanism still running, no longer certain what it was designed to hold together. The fog thickens, not around the ship, but around the meaning of now. And somewhere inside that uncertainty, the first branches begin to form. The knot does not unravel. It begins to branch, not into futures, not into alternate worlds, but into adjacent moments that refuse to line up. The helix moves forward, yet the sense of movement becomes uncertain, like walking through tall grass, where every step suggests another path you did not choose. Ray feels it as hesitation in his own decisions, a faint delay between intention and action, as if the present needs a moment to decide which version of him it will accept. Leah watches the clocks drift, then return, then drift again, always by the same imperceptible margin, as if time itself is testing boundaries without crossing them. Cram runs correlation checks and finds patterns that repeat without repeating, sequences that agree locally and contradict globally. Nothing breaks, everything still works, and that is what makes it unsettling. The knot is no longer holding time in one shape. It is allowing several compatible shapes to exist side by side, brushing against each other without merging. The branches become visible only when you stop trying to follow them. A star seems to occupy the same place twice, not doubled, not blurred, but quietly undecided. A maneuver the helix completes feels both executed and postponed, as if the ship remembers performing it before it finishes doing so. Leah realizes that what they are seeing is not chaos, but choice without selection. In physics, light can reach the same point by different paths and arrive together, carrying identical truth from different directions. Here, moments behave the same way, arriving aligned yet incompatible. Cram says nothing, but his silence carries weight. Ray understands it without being told. If the knot continues to branch, there will be no single present to return to, only a thinning agreement among versions that still recognize each other. The fog deepens, not thicker but wider, filling the space between these near-identical nows. And within that widening uncertainty, the branches do not multiply faster, they simply stop converging. At first, the helix feels unchanged. The deck plates remain steady underfoot. The hum of the engines holds its familiar tone, and the ship answers control inputs with the same quiet obedience it always has. Yet the sense of position begins to loosen, not in space, but in meaning. Ray grips the rail near the observation deck and realizes that the ship feels present in more than one way at once, as if the idea of here has become negotiable. Leah watches the navigation solution settle, then subtly reframe itself without triggering any alarms, choosing a slightly different interpretation of the same trajectory. Crom listens to the engines and hears nothing wrong, but he also hears something doubled, a resonance that should cancel out and doesn't. The Helix is still a single vessel, still intact, still moving, and yet it carries the unmistakable impression of occupying more than one valid state simultaneously, like a thought held in two minds that refuse to agree on the same conclusion. The discrepancy deepens, a maneuver completes, and then moments later completes again, not repeated, not undone, but remembered from a version that arrives slightly out of order. Ray takes a step and feels it land twice, once with certainty and once with doubt, as if the ship cannot decide which version of his motion it should acknowledge. Leah notices that internal timestamps disagree by small, consistent margins, not drifting, not diverging wildly, but holding parallel like tracks that never quite meet. Crom finally speaks, quietly, and says what all three of them already feel. The Helix is not no functioning, it is being interpreted. The ship exists across overlapping presents, each internally stable, each compatible with the laws that govern it, and none willing to surrender priority. For a long moment, no one moves. They understand that any action will belong to one version more than the others. The Helix remains steady, suspended in agreement without unity, carrying its crew forward while quietly asking a question it cannot resolve on its own. Which state is allowed to continue? They do not find the fragment by scanning for debris. It appears the way memories sometimes do, uninvited, unmistakable, already familiar. Against the fogged depth of space, something holds its shape too well, refusing to blur into background or distance. Ray slows the Helix without giving the order aloud, and the ship complies as if it has already done this once before. The object drifts with a calm that feels practiced, not accidental. Its surface is unscarred, its geometry intact. No signs of impact, no evidence of failure. It does not look abandoned, it looks preserved. Leah studies the contours and feels a quiet certainty settle in her chest. This is ARK-9, or part of it, but not the version history would allow. The materials are familiar, the design language unmistakable, yet the configuration reflects choices that were never finalized, systems that existed only as projections and simulations. Cram notes the absence of decay, the way time seems to have passed around the fragment without touching it. The Helix's instruments hesitate, recalculating, as if the object resists being placed into a single timeline. It is not out of place, it is out of sequence. As they draw closer, the wrongness sharpens. The fragment carries a future that never stabilized, a continuation that was drafted but never lived. Leah understands it suddenly, with a clarity that leaves no room for doubt. This piece did not survive destruction. It survived cancellation. It belongs to a branch that formed, advanced, and then lost its right to continue. The knot did not erase it completely. It left a remainder. Ray feels the weight of that realization more than its logic. The fragment is too complete to be a relic and too quiet to be a warning. It does not transmit, does not signal, does not ask to be recovered. It simply exists, holding the shape of a tomorrow that failed to become necessary. Cram breaks the silence at last and asks the only question that matters. If this version endured without a future, what does that say about the present they are standing in now? Leah does not answer immediately. She watches the fragment drift, steady and patient, and recognizes the implication forming beneath her thoughts. If the knot collapses, it will not choose which version survives. It will remove the condition that allows any of them to be remembered. The fragment is proof not of survival, but of exemption, an object spared not because it mattered, but because it no longer needed permission to exist.
The fog thickens around it, and for the first time, the crew understands that ARK-9 was never only a station. It was a filter, and something has begun to pass through.
The first sign is not confusion, it is balance. Ray stands and feels the deck answer him a fraction late, as if the ship waits to decide which version of his weight it should accept. Gravity holds, but it holds inconsistently, settling twice before committing. The air feels thicker near the walls and lighter toward the center of the corridor, not enough to be measured, only enough to be felt. Leah steadies herself at a console and notices that her reflection arrives half a beat after her movement, already corrected, already certain, as if the present is rehearsing her actions before allowing them to finish. Cram exhales and hears his breath return from somewhere too close to be an echo. No alarms sound. The helix does not protest. It simply stops agreeing with the body about where now is located. Disorientation spreads quietly. A step forward completes as a memory before it completes as an action. Hands meet surfaces that feel familiar and wrong at the same time, like touching a place you have already left. Leah closes her eyes, and the sensation eases, not because it disappears, but because the body no longer competes with the moment. Ray keeps his eyes open and focuses on the horizon line of the corridor, anchoring himself to something that does not ask questions back. Cram murmurs that nausea would be easier, at least it would be honest. Instead, there is only the sense that the self is being averaged, smoothed across several nearby versions that refuse to align perfectly. The knot does not twist harder. It loosens its grip just enough for the crew to feel what it was doing all along. When the fog returns, it is not outside the ship. It settles behind the eyes, and for the first time, this orientation feels less like a symptom and more like a warning.
Leah is the first to understand what is actually at risk. Not the ship, not the fragment, not even the knot itself. She watches the internal logs reorder without losing data, entries shifting position while remaining intact, as if the system can no longer agree on the sequence in which events deserve to be remembered. Nothing is deleted, nothing is corrupted, and that is precisely the problem. Memory, she realizes, depends on order more than content. Without sequence, experience becomes noise. She tells Ray and Cram that the knot was never just holding time together, it was holding memory in a usable shape. The present was not defined by what existed, but by what could still be recalled as having happened. Ray listens and feels the weight of it settle slowly. He tests his own thoughts, replaying recent moments, and notices how easily they slide past each other, how difficult it is to say which sensation came first. The fragment of ARK-9 drifts in his mind, whole and unreachable, like a thought remembered from a life he never lived. Cram checks the long-term buffers and finds no gaps, no missing frames, only an unsettling smoothness, as if the system has begun averaging their past instead of preserving it. Leah says the words carefully, aware that saying them makes them real. If the knot collapses completely, it will not erase their memories. It will dissolve the agreement that makes those memories belong to one version of them. The implication is quiet and absolute. Without the knot, there is no guarantee that what they remember will remain theirs. Experiences will persist, but ownership will not. A decision made by one version may settle into another. A fear felt now may be inherited by a self that never faced its cause. Ray imagines returning home with a lifetime of moments he cannot place, victories he cannot justify, losses that arrive without grief. Leah closes her eyes and understands that the most fragile thing aboard the Helix is not the hull or the engines, but identity itself. Cram finally speaks and asks how close they are to that threshold. Leah does not give a number. She says that thresholds are only visible once you have crossed them. Until then, you only feel the pressure of standing too near. The fog thickens again, not as a presence, but as a condition, and the knot responds by tightening in places they cannot see. The crew remains intact, conscious, functional, but for the first time, they grasp the true cost of collapse. It will not destroy them, it will redistribute them, and whatever survives on the other side will remember being human without being certain why.
Ray becomes aware of it, not as a thought,
but as a presence that does not demand attention. It feels like standing in a room where someone has just left, the air still shaped by a body that is no longer there. When he turns a corner, there is a fleeting certainty that he has already done so, that another version of the same movement has passed through this space moments ago and left a trace too faint to follow. Leah experiences it differently. For her, the sensation arrives as familiarity without memory, the comfort of recognition attached to nothing she can name. Cram pauses mid-sentence, not because he forgets what he was saying, but because the words feel borrowed, as if they belong equally well to a nearby self who chose to speak a moment earlier. None of these impressions are strong enough to be called hallucinations. They do not interrupt function. They simply coexist, quiet and insistent, like parallel thoughts sharing the same breath. The realization settles slowly. These are not intrusions. They are leftovers, versions of themselves that have not fully let go, carried forward by the knot, while it still maintains partial agreement. Ray understands that what he senses is not another self watching him, but a residue of choices that were made differently and then abandoned when the present moved on without fully closing the door. Leah names it internally as residual identity, the echo of continuity that remains when separation is incomplete. Cram notes that the ship registers no additional mass, no extra signals, no anomalies it can acknowledge. Whatever persists does so without physical claim. It exists only as alignment that has not yet decayed. The fog thins just enough for the crew to feel the boundary approaching. These residual cells will not last. They are temporary permissions, granted by a knot that is losing its authority. And when they fade, they will not depart dramatically. They will simply stop being necessary, leaving behind a quieter, lonelier present that no longer pretends it was the only one all along.
The fog no longer advances, it settles. Not as a front, not as an approaching wall, but as a condition the helix now carries with it. Space ahead remains visible, navigable, obedient to calculation, and yet every solution feels provisional, like an answer given with the understanding that it may soon need to be revised. Ray watches the stars and notices how quickly his mind accepts the uncertainty, how easily the present adjusts when it stops promising permanence. Leah monitors the systems and sees stability everywhere, but it is a stability that holds by consent rather than rule. Cram remarks that the engines sound normal, and then adds that normal has become a flexible word. The knot still exists, its influence can still be felt, but it no longer asserts itself. It allows the fog to linger, as if acknowledging that control is no longer absolute. Understanding arrives without drama. There will be no moment of failure to witness, no instant where everything breaks at once. The collapse, when it comes, will be quiet and distributed, a withdrawal rather than an impact. The fog is not a warning sign, it is preparation. Ray feels a strange calm take hold, not relief but acceptance of scale. Leah recognizes that whatever survives the collapse will do so without needing to remember what was lost, and that this too is a form of mercy. Cram says nothing, and for once, silence feels like the most accurate response available. The helix continues forward, not racing the inevitable, not resisting it, simply moving while movement is still a shared agreement. The fog thickens one last time, not to obscure what lies ahead, but to soften the moment when the knot finally lets go. And in that softening, the crew understands that the end of control does not arrive as chaos. It arrives as continuity without guarantee, a present that persists only because it has not yet been asked to stop.